During our husband's reconciliation dinner, a waitress whispered, "Run now." What I discovered was devastatingly powerful. Sarah's gaze drifted between the flickering candlelight and the table's scuffed surface. Each moment spent in the diner felt like an extension of their fractured life. The laughter from families nearby stung. She recalled nights when their own jokes filled the air, all innocence, no betrayal. Jake shifted uncomfortably across from her, an unsettling silence heavy between them, as tension vibrated like an electric current. She craved resolution, but feared the truth that loomed between their unspoken words. The waitress arrived, her knowing smile ever persistent. As she refilled their glasses, she leaned in closer, her breath warm and conspiratorial. "Run now!" The words sliced through Sarah like a bolt of lightning. Her heart raced, fueled by a sudden rush of defiance. Could it really be that simple? Or was it a desperate suggestion from someone who didn't see the years built behind their crumbling facade? Polite laughter began to unravel. Jake's voice rose, eyes glinting with frustration. "You knew this was bad, Sarah. Why can't you let it go?" Each syllable acted like a dagger, igniting a swirling storm of emotions within her. With every mention of bills and debt, overdue medical payments gnawing at them, she felt the fear of their situation consume her. His betrayal tasted bitter, lingering like cold coffee. Why did she always have to be the patient one, the one sacrificing happiness? Within her mind, Sarah's mother echoed lessons she had drilled into her. Loyalty matters. Sacrifice is noble. But what about her dreams? Each bite of stale bread rolled made her feel like a ghost of herself, a forgotten artist trapped behind a facade of domesticity. The candle flickered, shadows dancing, a cruel reminder of the light she had lost. How dare he demand her silence while he basked in his failure? The words didn't come as arguments built like rising tides within her. "Don't you see the life we've built? The kids—" Jake's voice faltered, defensiveness sliding away for a moment. Yet the plea was only a ghost, echoing against the vast emptiness that had replaced warmth in their home. The idea of abandoning everything frightened her deeply. What if she chose to pursue her passion, her art, only to discover the chaos was worse than the mundane routine she knew? What if she dared to leave, only to regret it? Before she could voice these growing thoughts, laughter erupted from a nearby table, a family, joyous and carefree. A shiver coursed through her. How could such happiness exist in her broken world? It narrowed into a tight, sinking feeling in her chest. If she embraced her identity as an artist, she could either thrive or fall hard. Just then, Jake's gaze met hers, a mix of regret and indifference swirling in his eyes, pulling her deeper into uncertainty. The ultimatum hung heavy, thickening the air, yet the chime of dishes hitting tables around them felt like an omen. Could she truly dismantle the life they shared? Or was retreating into the safety of familiar pain her only option? As the waitress glanced over, concern etched across her features. Sarah's breaths became irregular. She felt trapped in a whirlwind where personal dreams collided violently with the reality of who she had molded herself to be. Mama, wife, solitary artist left unfulfilled but resigned. The decision loomed larger, a fork in the road, echoing silently at each heartbeat. Run now, or stay chained to a crumbling marriage, forged from love, twisted by betrayal. What if she dared to voice her desires? The thought sent her pulse racing, the flames of inspiration flickering just behind the suffocating weight of disappointment. The clatter of silverware blended into the backdrop of chaos. Time hung precariously as she teetered on the brink between two lives. How much longer could she grapple with the growing truth? Change was inevitable, whether she embraced it or remained shackled by fear. Sarah absorbed the weight of the seconds ticking by, feeling the churning tide of her emotions battling against the jagged rocks of her reality. The air, thick with unresolved tension and lingering disappointment, felt stifling. It was as if something in her had snapped a little. An urge awakened within her, raw and fierce, defiant against the years of security she had clung to like a life raft. "Why can't you see what's happening?" The words slid from her lips before she could stop them, each syllable laden with frustration she had long suppressed. Jake's expression shifted from irritation to genuine surprise, as though she had transformed before his eyes, shedding the patient wife he had come to expect. "I'm trying to make it work," he stammered, but his voice was quiet, the defense already beginning to crumble. In that moment, Sarah hardened her resolve. This wasn't merely about their relationship, but a reckoning with her own desires. The weight of the mundane life they had built became a heavy chain anchoring her, but it was her personal dreams that would serve as the key to her liberation. Make what work, Jake? A life built on lies? Her voice was steadier now, tinged with a newfound confidence. "What do you want from me? Should I sit here and pretend everything is fine? Pointing fingers won't fix this." His defensiveness melted away completely. She saw the flicker of shame behind his eyes, the guilt hanging over him like a storm cloud. "I don't want to lose you," he said, vulnerability creeping in, replacing the frustration. "You're the only thing I've ever really had." The stinging truth pressed harder against her chest. But what had she sacrificed to hold on to this man, this fragile semblance of a family? Just beneath the surface, the artist in her simmered with frustration and longing for expression. It was the enticing whisper of creativity, buried beneath the weight of obligation. "I am not enough for you," Sarah said, her voice steadier, carrying an unexpected power. "You've drained the colors from my canvas. I need to find them again. I don't want to hide anymore. I can't keep living for someone else's happiness at the expense of my own." A murmur of surprise rippled through the diner, as if the universe paused to acknowledge her brave declaration. Sarah caught glimpses of the waitress's approving nod, hearts resonating with her quiet rebellion. Each look from the diners felt like a small affirmation, feeding her courage. Jake ran a hand through his hair, resigned frustration mixing with a glimmer of understanding. "So what? You want to throw everything away? What if I can't change? What if we can't go back?" "Maybe we're not supposed to go back," she shot back, tone firm yet tinged with uncertainty. "I'm not living in your shadow anymore. I can't. I deserve to know what it feels like to create, to pursue, to love fully without holding back. Maybe that starts with letting go." Something inside her shifted, breaking the dam of doubt. She felt the weight in her chest lighten, her heart beating a rapid rhythm of newfound hope. "Isn't it worth trying?" The question hung in the air, a bitter truth that felt equal parts terrifying and liberating. Resilience filled the silent space between them, heavy but promising, as if the tentative thread of their lives might be fraying, yet ready to mend anew, or perhaps unravel completely. Sarah began to see, for the first time, how much power she truly wielded. A journey of self-discovery lay ahead of her, full of unknowns, urging her to confront the darkness and find the brilliance hidden within her. Just as she thought she could breathe again, Sarah realized she had only scratched the surface of her potential. The waitress returned with a freshly poured glass of water, her expression softer now, like someone who understood the gifts of a courageous heart. "You're stronger than you know," she said gently, a sentiment echoed in the pools of reflection in other diners' eyes. That's when Sarah felt it, a flicker of hope igniting within her, far stronger than the fear that had been her closest companion. The path forward unfolded, expansive and rugged. A rush of anticipation sped through her veins like an electric current, thrusting her toward the unknown. "Tomorrow," she murmured, the word whispering promises of renewal under her breath. She felt on the precipice of a decision that could reshape her life, yet uncertainty loomed like an odd embrace. What would she pursue first? Could her art still hold the promise of her dreams? As they left the diner, Sarah noticed the night deepening around her, the streetlights casting revealing shadows, the first flickers of twilight as she stepped into the unknown. For the first time in years, she welcomed its embrace, caught in the spiral dance of ambition and fear. But lingering in her thoughts was one final question. Was she ready to finally confront the challenging choices that lay ahead? The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. As dawn broke the next morning, Sarah felt both exhilarated and apprehensive. Evening shadows may have given her courage, but now the sunlight illuminated her fears. Standing in her kitchen, she watched the sun glint off the polished countertops, a stark contrast to the chaos of emotions swirling within her. She recalled the waitress's words, "You're stronger than you know." The affirmation landed like a promise she needed to understand better. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the aroma enveloping her in a momentary sense of calm. Sarah allowed herself a few deep breaths, hoping to steady the tremors of uncertainty coursing through her. The weight of her decision loomed over her like a storm cloud, and she was aware that the real battle lay ahead, facing both her desires and fears head-on. What did she want from herself? A question echoing in her mind demanded urgent attention. A fleeting vision of canvases splashed with vibrant colors tugged at her thoughts, igniting her longing for self-expression. Yet another part of her feared the outcome, the repercussions of pursuing a life purely for her own fulfillment. Could she navigate the treacherous waters of her own dreams while still honoring the commitments she had forged? With a newfound resolve, Sarah decided that her journey towards self-discovery would not be an instant overhaul, but rather a series of small acts, steps toward reclaiming her identity. Starting today, she would invest in those acts that fueled her passion. She turned on her laptop with a decisive click, searching for local art classes. The glowing screen in front of her felt like an uncharted territory, beckoning her to explore its possibilities. Diving into the web of information felt both exhilarating and daunting. There were colorful snippets of classes and workshops promising a connection back to the artistry she had long neglected. In her search, one particular advertisement caught her eye, an open studio session every Friday at a local gallery. The wheels of ambition stirred in her mind, contemplating a commitment she had not made in years. Yet lurking in the periphery of her thoughts was Jake. It would be easy to let her resolve wane, to allow him to draw her back toward complacency. His expressions from the diner haunted her, a reminder of his dependency, but she steeled her heart. The boundaries of love that hold couplehood together could not be allowed to smother her spirit. Just as she was about to lose herself in the rush of excitement from her discoveries, her phone buzzed on the countertop. A message from Jake. "I'm sorry about last night. Can we talk?" Each word sent a wave of discomfort crashing over her. She knew that conversation would be pivotal. It would either draw her back into the safety of their troubled bond or redefine her path anew. Tension knotted her stomach. Maybe he would suggest trying to fix everything together, but she had yet to decide if she wanted to repair the existing cracks or step boldly forward towards finding herself. As she prepared to respond, the half-drawn smile of promise flickered once more in her mind, a smile of the artist she longed to be. With a deep breath, she set her phone on the table, zipping her resolve into a capsule that felt almost tangible. Decisions loomed ahead. Her art awaited her, and every heartbeat drove her closer to reclaiming her identity. But would she stand firm against Jake's request? Would she allow herself to navigate this complex landscape of love and autonomy? The reflection staring back at her still held uncertainty, a silent acknowledgement that the next steps she took could reshape everything. Time pressed against her as she prepared to send a message to Jake. Should she invite him to join her art exploration, or would she carve out a space solely for herself? It was a crucial turning point, a radiant promise of liberation nearly within her grasp, but she hesitated. Would this moment define her next chapter, or lead her to retreat into the shadows of her former self? The decision awaited her, mingling excitement with trepidation as the boundaries between her desire for connection and her need for independence swirled endlessly in her mind. With her finger hovering above the screen, she felt time slow. The moment of truth was upon her, and it was time to decide. What would she choose to embrace, and what might she risk losing in the process? Whatever path she chose next, it could unearth truths layered beneath the surface, waiting to reveal who she truly was. The phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness that had momentarily enveloped her. Sarah's heart raced as she picked it up. Instead of an invitation to connect, it was a simple reminder from her calendar about the open studio session that evening. The realization that she had promised herself to attend tugged at her conscience. Could she really commit to it, perhaps even find herself amongst fellow artists, even as her relationship with Jake sat precariously on the edge? She could feel the weight of Jake's message reverberating through her. It represented familiarity, comfort, and yet a profound sense of dread about the implications it held for her burgeoning autonomy. Was her desire for independence strong enough to overshadow years of entangled lives? Suddenly, the thought of attending the studio began to feel like both an act of defiance and a personal pilgrimage. With every intention brewing within her, she found herself typing her response. Instead of ignoring Jake's message fully, she drafted a careful reply. "I need time to think. I'll be at the gallery tonight." Pressing send felt momentous, a declaration of her commitment to herself. She stood up and glanced at the scattered art supplies that had laid dormant in her living room for months, perhaps years. The studio beckoned, not just as a space for painting, but as a sanctuary where she could explore the depths of her identity. The hours crawled by until evening's embrace finally arrived. The sun dipped below the horizon, shading the sky in hues of orange and purple, stirring a creative restlessness in her. Sarah dressed deliberately, allowing a simple flowy blouse and well-worn jeans to reflect the artist she hoped to cultivate. Had her past trappings of routine filtered her essence? She intended to reclaim it, to plunge headfirst into a world where self-expression dominated. When she arrived at the gallery, she hesitated for a second. Outside, the ambiance glowed warmly, almost inviting, yet her heart raced with every step forward. Inside, the scent of paint mingled with anticipation as she entered the studio. It felt alive, the chatter of fellow creatives buzzing, as laughter and memories flowed effortlessly. Navigating through the room, she felt like an outsider, a cryptic shadow observing from the periphery. Art displayed on easels tumultuously appealed to different parts of her. Each piece told its own story, unveiling emotions she had buried. Could she forge her narrative just as these other artists had done? As she set up her canvas, themes buried underneath years of conformity rushed to the surface. She felt raw, yet liberated. None of the concerns about Jake or the expectations that came with their relationship existed in this moment. It was a space of exploration, with no room for self-doubt. The paint felt foreign, yet familiar, as she dipped her brush into vibrant colors. With each stroke, she relieved tension chipping away at the edges of her identity. An hour melted into two, as scenes of unfiltered expression cascaded from her mind through her hands. Amid the euphoric process, one thought echoed loudly over all the others. Who was she beyond the commitments to others? A sudden movement in her periphery caught her attention. A fellow artist leaned in beside her. "You've been hiding here, haven't you?" he asked gently, with a glimmer of warmth in his eyes. "There's beauty in vulnerability. You shouldn't shy away from it." His words hung in the air, stirring something potent inside her. A layer had peeled back, exposing her longing for more than just existence. This moment marked a fresh horizon in her journey. As she thanked him, Sarah realized the connection she was forging with her artistry was not solely for herself. It held potential to inspire further connection with others. In that sacred twilight, Sarah faced a choice as she brushed bold final strokes onto her canvas. Could her art serve as a bridge between her longing for independence and her relationship with Jake? Would the things she had to express bring about a deeper understanding and empathy? With a renewed sense of clarity, she understood that her path diverged at this intersection. Embracing both her autonomy and the possibility of love required navigating complexities she was yet to comprehend. However, the message was clear. The art world was a place where she could thrive, but it would necessitate head-on confrontation with all that she had suppressed. As the session wound down, her heart raced in anticipation of the next steps. Would she embrace these newfound connections and creative desires, or would she let fear dictate her choices? At that moment, holstering uncertainty on one side and defiance on the other, Sarah knew it was time for a reckoning. And a different kind of message awaited her. One not just from Jake, but a message from within, beckoning toward transformation. The light from the studio's overhead bulbs shimmered against the colors she had coaxed from the canvas, a kaleidoscope of unspoken emotions swirling together. As she stepped back to admire her work, an unexpected surge of pride washed over her. The evening had been transformative, sparking a fire she had long neglected. Yet amidst the exhilaration, a creeping sense of dread unclenched her fists. Jake's name gnawed at the edges of her newfound solace. The gallery began to empty, laughter and conversation dissipating like trails of smoke. Fellow artists packed up supplies, but Sarah lingered. She was reluctant to leave the warmth of this creative sanctuary, a place where she felt more herself than she had in years. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded her brushes, the thrill of independence combating the emotional weight of her relationship. "Hey, can I see your work?" The artist from earlier approached again. His name was Michael, she recalled, and he had stood out not just for his talent, but for how he seemed to genuinely care about the artistry of others. "Sure," Sarah replied, turning her canvas slightly towards him. "It's beautiful. You captured something profound here." He scrutinized her work, nodding as he spoke. "It feels raw, like you're inviting people into your soul." His observation sent a jolt through her, inviting people into her soul. The words echoed, resonating through her insecurities and fears. Did she have the fortitude to truly expose herself, to unearth feelings she had long buried? Consciously, she held back the instinct to deflect praise. It felt foreign but thrilling to soak in acknowledgement. Leaving the gallery, Sarah stepped into the cool night air, her artistic spirit brimming with a sense of belonging. The streets felt less intimidating now. She was no longer merely drifting through life. Each step resonated with a newfound determination to bridge the gap between her blossoming identity and her entangled relationship with Jake. As she walked toward her apartment, thoughts collided chaotically. Would Jake understand this part of her? Would he accept the artist she was evolving into, or would he view it as a rejection of their shared history? The familiarity of doubt loomed over her, wanting her to retreat and embrace safety over risk. Reaching her building, she stopped. The decision loomed larger than ever. Should she reach out to Jake and offer her thoughts on their future now that she had begun to reshape her own? His text felt like a tether, pulling her back into a familiar rhythm she wasn't sure she wanted to revisit. With each breath, she could feel the fabric of her convictions weakening, despite her earlier empowerment. It was a question of love and growth, a question of whether staying in the safety of their relationship would fortify her or stifle her creative spirit. Inside her apartment, the haunting quiet almost echoed her inner turmoil. The silence contrasted starkly with the vibrancy of the studio. She stared at her untouched phone, her finger hovering over Jake's contact. The urge to communicate raced through her, fighting against the resistance that beckoned her to keep her art sacred and separate from him. Would reaching out deepen her resolve or lead her to a struggle she had been trying to sidestep? Tonight had held revelations, but they were shadowed by the lengths she'd have to go to in order to keep herself whole in a relationship that demanded sacrifice. Glancing at her canvas, the swirl of colors seemed to challenge her indecision. This was her time for growth, but at what cost? She had been so focused on her independence that the implications of connecting with Jake weren't just emotional, they were profoundly existential. As she wrestled with these thoughts, the tension in her chest tightened. Either way, she had to confront the complexities of her life. each choice demanding a piece of her soul. And across that turmoil lay the potential for powerful transformation. She was on the brink of an awakening, both as an artist and as a woman. The phone buzzed, startling her. It was a message from Jake, illuminating the dimness she had felt in her heart all night. The irony gnawed at her, an invitation to talk, to reconcile. Would she embrace this moment of truth, or allow her fear to dictate yet another decision? The moment had come to face the consequences of her choices, and for Sarah, the stakes had never been higher. As she sat on the edge of her bed, the dim light of the lamp casting long shadows across her undecorated walls, Sarah clutched her phone tightly, the message from Jake almost burning in her hand. "Can we talk? I miss you." The words felt like a betrayal of her recent clarity, a reminder of the heavy emotional baggage she was reluctant to unpack. Could her response, or lack thereof, define her? In this moment, as she wrestled with the uncertainty, she grappled not just with her feelings for Jake, but with her identity as a burgeoning artist. The question that lingered was simple yet profound. Who was Sarah without Jake, and who was she with him? She took a deep breath and lit a candle on her desk. The flame flickered, illuminating her workspace where her painting still stood, a testament to her evolution. The hues, vibrant and chaotic, invited anyone who gazed upon them to feel the raw energy she had poured into each stroke, energy she felt fading as she thought of Jake. Perhaps this was the existential choice she so feared. She could close the door on the growth she had embraced at the gallery and retreat into the comfortable, familiar patterns of her past, or she could engage fully with her creative spirit and risk the impact it might have on her relationship. Her phone buzzed again, this time echoing in the quiet room. Temptation nibbled at her resolve, yet instead of replying, she opened her sketchbook. Its pages were filled with fractured dreams, unvoiced fears, and visions of who she wanted to become. Sketch after sketch reminded her of the freedom she craved, the freedom to merge her life with her art. She examined an unfinished drawing, a self-portrait that hovered between clarity and chaos, much like her own life. In that moment, Sarah recognized the duality within her struggle. Engagement with Jake could become a source of inspiration or a drain on her emerging strength. What if they could communicate through this art, bridging the gap between their understanding? She considered, perhaps naively, if inviting him into her process could give both of them a new lens through which to view their relationship. But the shadow of doubt crept in. What if he couldn't see her evolution? What if he preferred the version of her that was more compliant, less demanding? She needed to confront that fear head-on. Was she prepared to open that door and risk hearing what she didn't want to hear? Gripped by a sudden wave of determination, Sarah grabbed a pencil and began sketching again, this time focusing on the image of herself and Jake, entangled yet separate in the composition. The act of creation became her crucible, testing the integrity of her thoughts and emotions. Her phone buzzed yet again, this time with a call. The name flickering on the screen felt like a jolt of electricity coursing through her. Could this one act of bravery, answering the call, define this pivotal moment? The onus was on her. Answer, and she could move toward confrontation to truly share her life as an artist with Jake, or decline, retreat into her sanctuary and risk accountability. With each ring, the defiance within her burned brighter. Maybe this call would forge a path that allowed room for both love and artistry without compromise. Should she answer, she wondered, and lay the groundwork of their dialogue rooted in her newfound self? The choice was hers. Would she hold her ground, balancing the weight of her unfolding narrative with the foundational ties of the past? As the call connected, Sarah's heart raced, signaling a decision that would ripple across her life like the brush of paint across canvas. "Hello, Jake." The stillness in her voice carried a charge of anticipation and uncertainty, awakening a pivotal moment of truth within. Would this be the beginning of their collective evolution, or a descent into familiar comfort? Sarah held her breath, ready to confront the fragile balance between love and her artistic journey. The call had just begun. "Sarah, is that you?" Jake's voice came through, warm and familiar, yet laced with an undercurrent of hesitation. It was as if he had been rehearsing his words, unsure of how to breach the emotional space that had grown between them. "Yes, it's me," she replied, steadying herself against the edge of her desk. The sketches sprawled before her now felt like an extension of the conversation, a direct reflection of her turmoil. "Why did you call?" "I just wanted to talk," he said, his tone softer than she remembered. "I've been thinking a lot about us." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of both promise and uncertainty. Did she want to dive back into the whirlpool of their past, or steer toward the horizon of her new self? Each option felt like a chance to either revive or delete chapters of her story. "About us?" she echoed, stalling. Her heart thudded audibly in her chest, a physical reminder that she was standing on a threshold, balancing on the fine line between vulnerability and protection. "What exactly did you have in mind?" "I think we need to talk about how things have changed," he said, tentatively probing. "About what you've been doing and how we fit into that picture." This was the moment Sarah had both envisioned and dreaded. The invitation to merge her world with his could either illuminate their connection or expose the fractures she had been hesitant to face. "I've been working on my art," she stated, feeling a rush of pride. "Finding my voice. It's important to me." "Art, right. I saw some of your pieces online. They're impressive." His acknowledgement felt like a layer peeled back, revealing potential, yet doubts loomed over every compliment. "But is it really you? Or is it just a phase?" She recoiled at his ambiguity. "A phase?" The word echoed, challenging what she had fought to cultivate. "This is me, Jake. It's as much a part of my evolution as it is my freedom." Silence lingered, stretching painfully thin. She envisioned the self-portrait again, the duality of herself and Jake interlaced. Could they both exist in the same frame, radiating truth without overshadowing one another? "I get that," he finally responded, a trace of frustration bubbling to the surface. "But I think you're forgetting that we used to share everything. Now it feels like we're on opposite sides of a wall." Heat surged through her. Hadn't he built that wall first? Yet there was a softness in his voice, an openness she couldn't ignore. "I need you to understand," she pressed on. "I'm not trying to shut you out. I just need to grow in a way that feels true to me." This delicate honesty felt thrilling, but also terrifying. The self-doubt edged in again. Did Jake truly understand this transformation? Could he accept the fiercely independent woman she was growing into, or would he cling to the memories of who they were? The piece she was creating in her mind was becoming clearer, but fraught with anxiety. "Maybe we should try to walk this path together instead of apart," he urged, hope mingling with uncertainty. Could that really work? Did they have the strength to redefine their relationship, blending their past with a future built on new foundations? The time seemed ripe for exploration. She felt an ember of determination ignite within her. "Okay," she relented, feeling her heart soften at his suggestion. "Let's try that. But we need to be honest. No more hiding behind our fears." "I agree," he said, a note of relief washing over his voice. "Let's be who we truly are, together." Was this the solid ground she craved, or just the starting line to confront deeper emotional complexities? As they began to lay their truths bare, Sarah sensed that their journey was far from over. "Jake, before we go further, there's something I've been meaning to share with you about my latest work." The words hovered just on the tip of her tongue, a revelation poised to reshape everything. Would he be prepared for what came next? Would they be able to hold space for the transformation that awaited them both? As she leaned into the conversation, uncertainty danced at the edges of her vision, both exhilarating and unnerving, pulling them deeper into the unknown. Sarah hesitated a moment longer, swallowed by the weight of what she wanted to say. The sketches on her desk, the colors blending together like her emotions, sparked a resolve that threatened to break free. She needed to focus, not just on what she was risking in this moment of renewed vulnerability, but on the profound transformation she had undergone. "Jake," she finally said, her voice steady, "I've been exploring not just my art, but myself. There's something new, something I feel I need to show you." Jake's curiosity flickered in his voice, yet the edge of caution held him back. "What do you mean? What's this about?" "I want to share a piece that embodies the journey I've been on," she said, motioning towards the vibrant canvas leaning against the wall. It was yet to be unveiled, a visual manifestation of her struggles, triumphs, and a clearer sense of identity. She could feel the thrill of anticipation mingle with anxiety. Unveiling her art felt like exposing her soul. "Here, let me show you," she declared, crossing the office in a determined stride. As she turned the canvas towards Jake, a rush of adrenaline courses through her veins. The bright colors, bold lines, and abstract forms danced across the surface, chaotic yet purposeful. "Wow," he breathed, eyes widening as they absorbed the image. "This is incredible, Sarah. But what does it mean?" Each brushstroke had spoken to her, imbued with feelings she had often masked to appease others or herself. "It's a reflection of the battles I've fought," she explained, internalizing the emotion. "It's my narrative, an honest portrayal of growth and self-discovery. I realized that every part of me can coexist, even the messy pieces." He took a step closer, exploring the intricacies of her work. "You've captured something raw and real." His eyes sparkled with a hint of vulnerability, the hint of connection sparking between them. "But are you sure this is how you want to express things? What if exposing so much feels overwhelming?" Her breath caught for a moment. Jake's concerns mirrored her own fears. What if revealing this piece to him left her feeling exposed? Yet that fear propelled her forward. "That's the point, Jake. It's about breaking free of all the inhibitions we've carried. I don't want to hide anymore, especially not from you." He looked at her, the silence thick with everything unspoken, the shared memories, the good and the bad. She could sense his internal struggle as he glanced back at the painting. "I want to understand," he said slowly, layering importance over uncertainty. "But how does this help us, Sarah?" "It helps us by validating who I'm becoming," she replied, determination sharpening her resolve. "We need to embrace what's changed in us both. I'm more than the girl you once knew. I'm evolving." She realized, as she spoke, that she was no longer begging for his acceptance, a shift she recognized as empowering. Jake's expression softened, but doubt still clouded his eyes. "And what about me? Where do I fit in all of this? Am I just witnessing your transformation?" The question hung charged in the air, electrifying the space between them. "You have a place if you're willing to forgive the past and evolve alongside me. But it requires honesty. On both our sides," she stressed, eyes searching his. His silence stretched, fraught with decisions unmade. Would he meet her halfway or retreat into the familiar echoes of their history, haunted by their past? Each intensity of the moment unfolded, peeling back layers of tension that had built over time. "Sarah," he began, hesitation giving way to something deeper. "I want to find that place too, but—" The weight of his uncertainty drew her inward, swirling doubt in the back of her mind. Could they truly navigate this uncharted territory? And if they did, what would it demand from both of them? As she watched him, uncertainty settled in her chest, a nagging reminder of the walls they both had once built. Yet, deep within, a yearning for connection sparked, one that beckoned her to leap. "Let's not waste time, Jake. We owe it to ourselves to pursue this, however messy it may get," she said boldly, voicing both her ambition and her fears. Would he take that leap with her, or retreat back into the shadows of their past? In that moment, The transformation she had longed for hung delicately in balance, waiting for one fateful decision to tip the scale. The tension in the air felt tangible, electric. Sarah held her breath, acutely aware of the pivotal crossroads looming just ahead. As Jake's contemplative silence extended into moments that felt like lifetimes, she sensed the urgency coiling tightly around her heart. What would she do if he withdrew? Or worse, what if he accepted but resented the change she was advocating? Focusing on her breath, she allowed her gaze to drift back to the canvas. Each vibrant hue and frenetic stroke seemed to pulse with life, her life. It was a stark reminder that she mustn't retreat from her newfound authenticity, yet the gnawing fear of rejection gnawed at her. "Sarah," he said finally, voice steadier but tinged with trepidation. "This is absolutely beautiful. But I've hurt you before. I'm terrified that I won't be able to hold space for the you that's evolving. What if I mess it up again?" His self-awareness struck Sarah like a promise. A flicker of hope ignited within her. She needed to address not just her own evolving self, but also create a channel for Jake's fears and aspirations. They had both grown, but it was a matter of navigating that new landscape together. "Jake, I don't expect you to have all the answers." The confidence in her voice surprised even her. "What I need is your willingness to explore this with me. It can be clumsy and messy, but it's what we owe ourselves to try. And I need to hear you, your thoughts, your fears. If we are to walk this path together, I want us to do so fully aware of who we are now." The sincerity of her words resonated. Jake's expression shifted as if he were slowly piecing together a puzzle that had long been scattered. "I'm scared," he admitted, the admission heavy on his tongue. "Scared of losing you again. It feels like everything has changed, and I don't know what role I play anymore." Sarah stepped closer, seeking to bridge the emotional gap. "That's exactly what this is about, defining those roles together. It's new territory for both of us, but can't we explore this side by side?" She dared to touch his arm, a tentative connection that felt both comforting and powerful, charging through the intimate space they shared. Jake's eyes darted to her hand, uncertainty battling with a flickering spark of hope. "I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions, wanting to stay safe and wanting to jump into the unknown with you. What if I'm still the same guy who made mistakes? What if this isn't enough?" Her heart raced. Jake's fear mirrored her own when she had first picked up the brush, facing the blank canvas, unsure if she could translate her voice. "Then let's use this chance to redefine ourselves, Jake. Who we were doesn't have to dictate who we become. We can reframe our past and decide how we engage with it." He remained silent for a moment, absorbing her words, and she could see the internal struggle as he fought against the weight of history. "You've changed so much, Sarah. You're brave, and I admire that. I wish I could be as courageous." The profoundness of his admission opened a channel for her aspirations to flow freely. "Maybe you don't see it, but you are courageous too. Acknowledging vulnerability takes strength. You're facing the discomfort of this moment with honesty." Jake dropped his gaze, contemplating. For the first time, Sarah could see the tilt of his shoulders, a subtle release of tension. "What if I try?" he finally said, vulnerability lacing his words with newfound resolve. "What if I take the leap with you?" Her heart soared. This was the moment she had longed for, an intersection of hope, fear, and shared dreams. Yet their acknowledgement of past pain also cast a shadow. "It will take work, Jake. We need to dismantle what holds us back to build something real." He nodded slowly, contemplation shifting to determination. In that instant, the air thawed, and the conversation pivoted from past mistakes to potential futures. But a lingering question danced on the edge of her consciousness. Were they truly ready for the labyrinth of change ahead? As they faced the possibilities together, a dawning realization struck her. Their journey would not just redefine their relationship, but demand a deeper understanding of themselves. With newfound resolve, Sarah took a cautious step forward. Then let's start exploring. But where do we begin? The question lingered, poised for exploration amid the unraveling layers of their connection. And the moment felt ripe with both promise and uncertainty, like a threshold about to be crossed. What awaited them on the other side remained unknown, though the pull towards discovery beckoned insistently. In the weeks that followed, Sarah immersed herself in her art, while Jake took tentative steps toward reconnecting with their life. Together, they navigated the emotional tides that drew them apart and the threads that pulled them back together. Every weekend, her presence at the local art gallery became a ritual, a sanctuary of purpose and expression. Each brushstroke on canvas felt like an affirmation of her autonomy and individuality, side by side with the evolution of their relationship. Jake, too, showed up more present, exploring his own vulnerabilities. Concrete discussions ensued around dinner tables, straddling the familiar and the estranged. They talked about disappointments and aspirations, rebuilding their foundation brick by brick, no longer relying solely on the comfort of silence. Gradually, a thriving dialogue replaced the void that had once defined them, fostering mutual support to develop their separate identities. One particular Friday evening, the open studio buzzed with excitement. Vibrant laughter floated through the air, sparking energy that coursed through Sarah's veins as she prepared for the upcoming showcase. Her works were no longer just an outlet, but a destination for those who resonated with her transformation. As she stood ready before a gathered crowd at the gallery, anticipation bubbled within her. This was her debut, an opportunity to share her journey publicly. With a deep breath, she stepped up to the microphone, confidence radiating from her every word. "Thank you for being here," she began, glancing at the canvas behind her. The work that encapsulated not only her own struggles, but the collaborative exploration Jake and she had embarked on together. "Every piece represents not just the artist I strive to be, but the woman I am becoming." Applause filled the room, and the warmth of acceptance washed over her. With each word, she felt liberated. The boy in her childhood sketches who had been reluctant to leap into the chaos of creativity began to fade away, replaced by a vibrant affirmation of individuality. Jake stood among the crowd, pride illuminating his features, encouragement bubbling from every gesture as he nodded subtly with each revelation she imparted. The words flowing from her mouth reflected resilience, a commitment to her identity that she had once feared to embrace. In that moment, she understood that confronting struggles offered profound clarity. By liberating herself, Sarah discovered the gift of reciprocated understanding between her and Jake. He watched, supportive and engaged, his process unrolling before her as they danced in perfect harmony. A few days later, the walls of their apartment echoed with laughter, the once stifling silence replaced by joy as they spent evenings painting together, blending canvases that melded both their identities. No longer two halves, they moved fluidly as a unit, each stroke reinforcing their profound understanding of personal freedom. Recognition came swiftly. Local galleries began to take notice of Sarah's work, and she soon found herself awarded a solo exhibition at an emerging artist show. It felt surreal, a milestone she had long envisioned. She was not simply a woman who adapted to the shadows of her relationship, but had emerged as a recognized artist, commanding her own narrative. On opening night, their apartment became alive with friends, laughter, and the promise of new beginnings. As she stood amidst the vibrant artwork that now adorned the walls, Jake approached her, his expression earnest, admiration pouring from his eyes. "I'm so proud of you," he said softly, reaching for her hand. "You've conquered something so powerful." For the first time, Sarah felt whole, the transformation manifesting not just as personal achievement, but as a shared understanding of who they had become together. This journey was no longer about choosing to hold on to one version of love over another, but about merging and evolving side by side. As the enthralled audience spoke of her work, it echoed beyond her own recognition. It resonated with authenticity and vulnerability, attributes that made her art breathe life into their shared connections. Each compliment from the viewers bolstered her burgeoning confidence, solidifying the change she had so desperately sought. Sarah gazed into Jake's eyes, filled with newfound determination. Their conversation had bifurcated their past, and now they stood firmly at the threshold of what lay ahead, together. The journey didn't conclude with a singular achievement. Rather, it blossomed into an open-ended narrative of mutual growth and support. At that moment, she realized that running wasn't about fleeing from her challenges, but embracing a path that rewrote the essence of who she was. Love was not the absence of struggle. It was facing it head-on with tenacity and creativity. As the last guests bid their farewells, she turned to Jake, a silence filled with promise spreading between them. She smiled, the artist in her revived and the woman in her experienced, the perfect blend of creativity and connection, ready for whatever lay ahead. In that space, Sarah felt a profound sense of achievement. She had redefined love and art as intertwined expressions of her being. "Let's keep creating our story," she whispered, entwining her fingers with his as they stood together against the backdrop of her dreams, finally realized. And as the night enveloped them in its embrace, Sarah knew they were equipped to face the ebbs and flows of life, ready to paint their future in bold strokes of color. Now, don't wait another moment to immerse yourself in more incredible journeys of growth and triumph. Subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and thoughts on Sarah's transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion, as only true fans of overcoming adversity understand the importance of spreading these messages.